So we are leaving Kaunas now, early in the morning. It's a Sunday, so there's hardly anyone out. Has really put this area into red alert. It's generally called the Suwalki Gap or the Suwalki Corridor, and the Suwalki Gap is this region where, you know, all the guns are pointing to this. If EU or the West would actually increase the sanction and maybe block off Kaliningrad completely, then this would be a high priority place for the Russians to secure. I'm going to get stopped by a police guy here, so I will have to tell you about this later. Hi, I'm Paul, a man who knows my way around, and you're watching the Teutonic Road Trip 2022, where I'm traveling from Ventspils in Latvia to Gdansk in northern Poland. Today we will be leaving Lithuania and Kaunas to travel to Mazuria in northeastern Poland, and by doing so we will be driving through the most dangerous region in EU, the Suwalki Gap, the corridor of land along the Polish and Lithuanian border between Russia's semi-enclave Kaliningrad and Russia's ally Belarus. This piece of land has been attracting tensions in Eastern Europe and the Baltics ever since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1990. The corridor isolates the heavy militarized Kaliningrad from the rest of Russia by EU and NATO members Poland and Lithuania. Following the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, the Suwalki Gap is a geopolitical hotspot of Europe. If war breaks out between NATO and Russia, this is where it starts. And I'm driving right through it. Please come with me. We're on Via Baltica, the motorway that connects Helsingfors, Tallinn, Riga. It doesn't actually go by Vilnius, but it goes through Lithuania and it goes through Kaunas on its way down to Poland. I think it goes through Warsaw, I think so. And then it ends in the capital of Czechia, Prague. So, but I don't think it's going to be such a nice motorway, the entire road here. But they've been building it up. It's like a big project for these Baltic countries to improve the communication between their countries and the rest of Europe. Again, all three of these Baltic countries are desperately trying to become less dependent on Russia and more involved in business and economy in Europe, which they are already, of course. It's a long time since the time of the independence. They've come a long way. Yeah, but this is a nice motorway, I have to say. Via Baltica. Yeah, we're traveling through some interesting area of the world right now, or we're getting into it with geopolitics and things like that. You're asking me, what do you mean geopolitical stuff? What do you mean tense political matters today? Well, this is the reason. The road that we're just passing here, maybe you can see it. It's the road to Kaliningrad. Yeah, so in February 2022, when Russia invaded the Ukraine, the EU nations and the United States of America and several other nations started an embargo, sanctions against Russia to convince them to stop the war. And these type of sanctions were, for example, related to import of goods to and from Russia. Now, Russia as a whole is a huge country, right? But the Kaliningrad Oblast is an exclave, or a semi-exclave. If I want to go real nerdy on you here, it's a semi-exclave, because an exclave is a part of a country that is completely covered by other countries. And the Kaliningrad Oblast is not completely covered by other countries. There's also a sea border there. They have the Baltic Sea. That makes it a semi-enclave. Okay, nerdy stuff over. So they have to transport all the goods back to and from Kaliningrad through this area of Lithuania and Poland. And the road that we just passed is the main artery for goods that are coming from either Belarus or from Russia. This area here, north of the border to Poland, and on this Polish side where there's also the same thing, that lots of transportation from Belarus going on to Kaliningrad, has really put this area into red alert. It's generally called the Suwalki Gap or the Suwalki Corridor. Suwalki is the first town that we're going to, well, we're actually not going to pass it, but it's the first big town on the Polish side of the border. And the Suwalki Gap is this region where, you know, all the guns are pointing to this. If EU or the West would actually increase the sanction and maybe block off Kaliningrad completely, then this would be a high priority place for the Russians to secure. Yeah, I don't know what to expect here, if there's going to be soldiers or anything like that, but I don't think so. So why do Russia have a semi-enclave in Kaliningrad? Why doesn't it belong to Lithuania or Poland? Or why isn't it a country by itself? And I think that's an excellent question. And in order to answer it, we need to go back in time. We have to go back to the Second World War and the end of it. In fact, we have to go even further back. More than 1,000 years back, all this region was populated by Baltic tribes. And a group of them were known as the Prussians. They were not German. The Prussians were Balts. The Prussians lived there peacefully in this area around Kaliningrad and south of it until the Teutonic Order came. The Teutonic Order, we talked about the Teutonic Order. They came here to Christianize, and the way that they Christianized was basically they killed everybody. And so there were room over. I mean, most of these people were either enslaved, they were killed. So people moved in from Germany to fill the gaps. This was like a new territory. So a lot of Germans moved in from all over Germany and settled here and built their lives here. And so over centuries, this whole region was more and more Germanized. And it became, what is Kaliningrad today was known as Königsberg. It was actually one of the Teutonic Order's bigger cities. It was populated by Germans. They spoke German there. It was a German city. Then came, of course, the Second World War. And in the end of that Second World War, the Soviet Union marched in all over this region, of course, and there was quite a bloody battle about Königsberg in the end of World War II. They vaporized Königsberg. It was basically flattened by artillery and bombs and blah blah blah. So it was vaporized. And then when the World War II was over, the Soviet Union said, we are not resettling this area again with Germans. Sorry, we're getting rid of them. We don't want to have any more Germans living in any of these Baltic countries anymore. So now we had vacancies again, right? So Russians moved in with people from all over Russia, from Ukraine, from Belarus, people moving in to build up Kaliningrad. It wasn't supposed to be Königsberg anymore. Now it was Kaliningrad. So they built it up. And I think it's been a fairly poor region, but it had a strategic value from a military point of view. The naval base in Baltusk and in Königsberg, or in Kaliningrad, sorry, were very important for the Soviet Union. So I think the whole oblast was really more of a militarized area than anything else. And then when the Soviet Union fell apart in 1991, then the Baltic countries became independent. They moved on. But what to do with this area here? There were no other people living here. There weren't any Germans reaching out their hands and saying, we want to go back. So so they kept it. This oblast, this part here, just became part of Russia. Just isn't in Russia, it's outside Russia. Yeah, so that's why there is a semi-enclave called Kaliningrad in the middle of Poland and Lithuania. Glad you asked. Here's the border with Poland. We're leaving Lithuania and we're going into Poland. This is the old border building here. Doesn't look in very good condition anymore. The one thing I really like, I have to say about this, I'll tell you what it is. What I like about going into Poland like this is I'm going to get stopped by a police guy here, so I will have to tell you about this later. Yeah, the Polish police, they made me blow. They did an alcohol test. I don't know if, I think it was for everybody. I don't think it was just me. No, they're doing it for the guys behind me as well. And then he asked me where I was going. Yeah, so there's still border control sometimes, apparently. But yeah. Anyway, what I wanted to say before I got stopped by the police here. No, what I wanted to say is it makes me happy to go into Poland like this because I just got 1 hour younger. Can you believe that, huh? Isn't that fantastic? It's one of the few times where you can go somewhere and you actually get younger. I go 1 hour younger just a few minutes, 1 minute ago. Wow, I'm getting younger by the minute. Yeah, wonderful. Going the other way though, that's not so good.